This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Oil prices climbed on Tuesday on concerns the Iran-Israel conflict may intensify, raising the risk of further unrest and the potential disruption of oil supply from the key Middle East producing region. Brent crude futures rose 34 cents, or 0.5%, to $73.57 a barrel as of 0340 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was up 29 cents, or 0.4%, at $72.06. Both contracts rose more than 2% earlier in the trading session. Oil prices settled more than 1% lower on Monday on hopes that the conflict would ease after media reports Iran was seeking an end to hostilities.
OPEC said on Monday it expected the global economy to remain resilient in the second half of this year and trimmed its forecast for growth in oil supply from the United States and other producers outside the wider OPEC Plus group in 2026. In a monthly report which did not mention the Israel-Iran conflict, the OPEC also left its forecasts for global oil demand growth unchanged in 2025 and 2026, after reductions in April. It said the economic outlook was robust despite trade concerns. A solid economy shrugging off trade conflicts and a slowdown in supply growth outside OPEC Plus, which groups OPEC Plus Russia and other allies, would make it easier for OPEC Plus to balance the oil market. Rapid growth from U.S. shale and from other countries has weighed on prices in recent years.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
The European Commission is set to propose on Tuesday a ban on EU imports of Russian gas and liquefied natural gas by the end of 2027, using legal measures to ensure the plan cannot be blocked by EU members Hungary and Slovakia. The proposals will set out how the European Union plans to fix into law its vow to end decades-old energy relations with Europe's former top gas supplier Russia, made after Moscow's 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine. An internal commission summary of the upcoming proposal, seen by Reuters, said it would fix into law a ban on imports of Russian pipeline gas and LNG from January 1, 2026, with longer deadlines for certain contracts.
A U.S. Senate panel proposed a full phase-out of solar and wind energy tax credits by 2028 but extended the incentive to 2036 for hydropower, nuclear and geothermal energy, which are favored by President Donald Trump's administration, according to a draft bill circulated on Monday. The draft bill, part of a sprawling Republican budget package, made several changes that clean energy advocates pressed for to a bill passed in the House last month. The language released by the committee chair, Republican Senator Mike Crapo, envisages phasing out subsidies enshrined by the Biden-era 2022 Inflation Reduction Act for solar and wind in 2026 by reducing the incentive to 60% of its value and ending it by 2028. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. U.S. President Donald Trump signed an agreement on Monday formally lowering some tariffs on imports from Britain as the countries continue working toward a formal trade deal. The deal, announced by Trump and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Canada, reaffirmed quotas and tariff rates on British automobiles and eliminated tariffs on the UK aerospace sector, but the issue of steel and aluminum remains unresolved. Trump said the relationship with Britain was fantastic, as he waved, and then briefly dropped a document that he said he had just signed.
Gold rebounded on Tuesday as heightened geopolitical uncertainty stemming from Israel-Iran fighting and U.S. President Donald Trump's call to evacuate Tehran led investors to seek safe haven assets. Spot gold rose 0.3% to $3,392.29 an ounce as of 0601 GMT, after dropping more than 1% on Monday. U.S. gold futures fell 0.2% to $3,410.90. Market sentiment continues to swing between escalation and de-escalation regarding events in the Middle East, and these back-and-forth sentiment shifts are what is driving the gold price's moves either side of the $3,400 level, KCM Trade Chief Market Analyst Tim Waterer said.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Sugar production in Brazil's key Centro-South region rose 8.9% in the second half of May when compared to a year earlier, industry group Unica said on Monday, topping market expectations as sugarcane crushing also increased in the period. Sugar output hit 2.95 million metric tons in late May, Unica said in a report, with cane processing rising 5.5% to 47.84 million tons. Both figures exceeded forecasts of 2.84 million tons and 45.91 million tons, respectively, from analysts polled by S&P Global Commodity Insights.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.